Thank you.
Well, thank you, George. So this is my first time being able to give a sermon in our new awesome church. So this is cool. And so today we're going to be talking about the gold in your wounds. Kind of how our wounds and our hurts can be places of opening and can be sort of portals for new awareness for us. And you might say, well, you know, what's so good about wounds? Because getting wounded sucks. Getting hurt sucks. So, but there's new seeing that can be done. But and we can have a little bit of interaction too. So, what are some of the ways that we get wounded? Words. Yeah. Words can be hurtful, and generally we tend to be wounded by other people, and sometimes it can be people that we don't know. Sometimes it could be strangers, but oftentimes our wounds come from the people who are oftentimes even the closest to us. Sometimes a word unfitly spoken, to be gentle about it. And there can be wounds that are deliberately visited upon us. Somebody says something or does something that they, in which it's intended to hurt. And sometimes wounds happen kind of unintentionally. And one way to experience how we are hurt is how we receive it. And I had this realization about something in terms of, like for instance, let's say somebody were to say to me, "Hey, you're going bald, aren't you?" And that is actually a factual piece of information, and so it doesn't really hurt my feelings. But let's say I was in a work situation, we're sitting around a table, and somebody were to say, "Hey, you know, John, you've got a pretty fat pot belly there." And that would probably not be an appropriate thing to say. Also, still factual. But if somebody were to say that in a circumstance like that, it might kind of hurt my feelings. But then I thought, well, what about Bonnie years ago did some volunteering with the Special Olympics. And as you may know, Special Olympics, the athletes are all people born with intellectual deficits, mental disabilities. And so sometimes folks like that, they can talk and there's not much of a filter. And so if I was volunteering at the Special Olympics and one of the athletes came up to me and said, "Boy, you've got a fat belly," I might say, you know, "Yeah, I should probably eat more salads." That would, you know, and so it's just interesting to look at, you know, what my assumption is about the intention of what is coming to me can make a big difference. And got a great example of this in which when Bonnie and I, probably in the first 6 months or so of when we were dating, this is 1983, 1984. That's how long we've been together. And so we were walking down the mall in Houston, and so there was this display, and there was a mannequin with what I think at the time they called them belly shirts. They were like a little t-shirt that kind of came down to about here, kind of midriff bearing. And I think Bonnie said something like, you know, "Oh, I like that shirt." And I said something like, "You don't need to wear that." Okay.
My point.
Yeah. So, 12 years later, 12 years later, something brought up that interchange. And so, when she brought, then I actually remembered it. I can remember it right now. And so, what I was intending, what happened was, you know, here I have my 27-year-old hottie girlfriend with a flat stomach, you know, who, you know, she said that she liked that shirt. And for me, what was going on in me is like, I thought those were kind of sexy shirts, and I kind of liked them. But, you know, I'm thinking, well, maybe I don't want her to wear that, so other men are thinking, you know, I kind of like that shirt on that girl. And so I was smart enough to know that my girlfriend was not somebody who I could say, yeah, you're not going to have that shirt, because I would not have been her boyfriend any longer. And so I'm sort of editing as it's coming out of my mouth. So I'm trying not to tell her what to do, but I kind of don't want her to wear that shirt because of my thing about, like, you know, oh, other guys are going to be ogling her. So I said, you don't need to wear that shirt. And so what you heard was,
I would look bad then. I was too fat to wear that shirt.
right, she heard, I'm too fat to wear this shirt. And so I had no idea that's what you received. Until 12 years later. And what a terrible thing to carry around for 12 years, you know. And so we had a conversation about this just a couple of weeks ago. I was giving the sermon down in Kerrville, at the Unity of Kerrville. And so we were staying at the hotel, and I needed to go down. I'd forgotten something out of the car, so I just needed to go from the room to the car. And so I just, you know, I think I just had my swimsuit on. Anyway, I would put a shirt on, and she said something like, you know, yeah, it's good that you put a shirt on to go outside the room. And what she meant is that it could be kind of tacky when guys walk around shirtless at a hotel or whatever. It's not like a swimming situation. What I heard is that you don't want anybody seeing your man boobs. So, you know. And so then we had a conversation about it, and it's so interesting, the difference between what we hear and what is intended. And so what can be a real blessing is to sort of, you know, a little bit of like, what were you meaning by that when you actually just said that to me? So some of these little wounds, you know, we can carry them around for a long time.
So you got that crop top right.
I did not get crop top.
Yeah, yeah. So, just giving a little bit of my story that will kind of lead into the next piece. When I was in 8th grade, it's probably in 8th grade when something I won't tell, you know, junior high was a nightmare. Anybody have a nightmare junior high experience? Okay. But in 8th grade, about 8th grade, you might remember this, the teachers start asking you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I knew that I wanted to be a minister. The guys who, a couple of ministers in my life who I really admired, ministry is what they did, and I was one of those, you know, kind of nerdy kids who actually paid attention in Sunday school and was actually, you know, cared about what the lesson was. I noticed the cute girls too, but, you know, I was also paying attention to the lesson. And so I started on that path, and I was with this ministry called the Emissaries of Divine Light, and we had what later became called intentional communities, but back in the 70s we just called them communes. And so I spent part of my childhood in a commune where there was, you know, studying spiritual principle, and then we would go outside and work in the organic farm to put the principles that we were learning in class into work. Because work was seen as love made manifest, which is a good way to get people to do a lot of work for you when you say, work is love made manifest. And so so I went through their educational program, which is a small non-denominational movement. They didn't have a seminary per se, but they had education centers in some of the communes. And I went through that. It was what, for those of you who are familiar with licensed Unity teachers, it's about that level of education, spending a few months at a time at an educational facility, and and all that stuff. So I completed that when I was 22, but I didn't feel ready for ministry at that point. And so met Bonnie, we got married, we started a business. And so we were ready to have children, got married, and we were ready to have children. And so we eventually got pregnant, and everything was going great. And then at about 5.5 months of gestation, things stopped going great. And so ultimately, our daughter Sarah was born prematurely, and she lived for about 2 hours, and then she passed away, and that was a wound, and so my life had been going a certain way, and with certain assumptions. And then this completely sort of unexpected and tragic event happened, and it threw everything up for review for us. Because even though I had been, studying spiritual principle, living spiritual principle, it sort of like this was such a blow that it made us question everything. Like what means anything? What is purpose? What is and so after a month or two, I said, well, I got to do something different, and so I wanted to sort of hit the road, as in like, let's just you and me and our little dachshund Pumpkin. And what we decided to do is we just decided to drive around the West and ask people what their purpose was and what meaning was for them. And we had ideas of people from our own spiritual movement that we were going to, stop and check in with along the way, but we weren't going to limit ourselves to that. And so we would ask the person behind the counter at the Motel 6, that's the level of spending we were doing on our trip. Or I remember one time going to a Subway, and there was this girl, she was probably about 19. So we would just ask almost random people, which sounds embarrassing, but like when you're at that state, you don't care, And so I remember asking her, so what is the purpose of your life? What is meaningful to you? And she was like, I don't know. And then but after we got our sandwich and walked out to the car, we could see through the window that she was kind of wiping down the counter, but we could see that she was in thought. Like she was kind of considering the question, and so it seemed like it was a blessing just to ask the question, so that could be start to be entertained by the person. And so so one of the places we went to was the headquarters of our church, our non-denominational movement, which was in a place called Sunrise Ranch in Loveland, Colorado. And so we went there, met with a couple of folks and asked them the question, and then met with a friend who was sort of a unique friend in our lives, because Bonnie and I had each met this fellow on trips to Great Britain. He was in an emissary facilities over there. And so when I was out talking to him, a fellow named Cliff Penwell, he said, well, actually, I want to tell you what I think your purpose is. And he said, let's meet after lunch. And it's like, well, okay. And so he's somebody who is one of these people that, like, I probably haven't talked to him in about 10 years, but if he walked in the door, it would be like it was yesterday that we were together. And so he sits down, and the two of us were there, and so he's talking to me, and so he starts saying these very positive things about me, and so I was going to have none of that. And so this is something that I think is not just a factor for me. Like when somebody is really telling you something genuine and appreciative to you about you, don't you tend to deflect those? It's good for you if you don't, but I think many of us do. And it's like, you know, here comes this blessing, and it's sort of like, it becomes like, hey, I'm in the Matrix. It's like, I'm going to let that blessing go right by. Here comes one, ooh, dodged it, you know. And here comes one that knocked that blessing out of the way. And so I'm doing that, and then he says, no, John, you are a priest. And priest is not a word that we used like the Catholics, but he meant it in a shamanic, in a sort of a universal spirituality way. And then, you know, then I just started crying. Because it's like, how can this guy who in one sense doesn't know me that well know this? And is it time to stop hiding that piece about me? Is it time to, because for many years it was sort of like, is it egocentric for me to want to be in ministry? Is it egocentric of me to want to teach class? Because, you know, the little sort of devil on the shoulder saying like, oh, you think you're all Mr. Spiritual, but you just want to be up in front of people, and all that nonsense, you know. And so that's what his statement sort of, it pushed through all of that stuff and got to the core. And so like when I talk about the gold and the wounds, I never want to imply that we're wounded by God to give us a lesson. In other words, it's like, you know, you need to learn humility. I'll go ahead and kill your child, and then you'll maybe learn some. You know, the divine does not work that way. But we can see new meaning subsequent to our wounds. In one sense, they're connected. In another sense, it's we are opened up. Like there was an old Carly Simon song that has the line, "Don't mind if I fall apart. There's more room in a broken heart." And you know, and when Sarah died, we just got broken open. We were pretty nice people already, pretty compassionate people already. But that's, you know, that's something that happened. And so one of the things that it opened me up to is that we had an old friend who I went to see, and this is 95, I guess. And she was dying. And I was the kind of person who, you know, not in a mean way, but it's like, yeah, I don't want to go see anybody in the hospital. That's all like, you know, it makes me uncomfortable. But just being broken open, I went to see, her name was Pat Leonard, and she had cancer, and I went to see her in the hospital and just held her hand and, you know, didn't flee out the door when she was sick, tried to get her some more medicine when she was in pain. And so that was a sort of gold that came out of that wound. Around this time, a piece of gold came through the email. This is like 95. And this was, for those who remember, this was originally credited to a great man, Nelson Mandela, but it actually wasn't his quote. It's actually a Marianne Williamson quote. Some of you have heard this. I have this up on my wall at home. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God, and your playing small doesn't serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. That's so good, I'm going to read it again. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. Bless you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give others permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Just dropped a truth bomb, boom, there. I love this. And something that Marianne doesn't talk about in that beautiful quote is humility. And I think that many of us on the spiritual path of any kind of, you might say, progressive spiritual path, that there's this vigilance against ego. That, you know, I've got to make sure I don't do anything that smacks of ego, because ego's bad and I want to be good and spiritual. And I've actually started to think that in progressive spirituality, we have just taken we have just taken Satan and renamed it. We've renamed Satan ego. Because most of us would probably think, you know, well, Satan is a metaphor in the Bible. There's, as we say in Unity, there's only one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, which also doesn't allow for any opposing presence. And so one of my suggestions to you is to not let self-talk about ego prevent you from stepping forward, whether it's painting the painting, or teaching the class, or singing the song, or doing whatever it is that is in you to do that you've been shutting down because it might be ego. Don't worry about the ego. Ego's probably going to be in there somewhere, and it's fine. Just, you know what I mean? You're probably not going to be able to extract 100% of ego. And so it's like, relax, it's good. Just do the thing. Follow your dream. Let the goodness out. And one of the things that a spiritual community like we are here can do is we can give each other permission to shine. We can give each other permission to let the gold out. Because what are we afraid of? We're afraid of if we let the gold out, people are going to say, you know, well, who are you? And you know. But it's like our job is to actually not do that. Our job is to create a safe place so that the gold can come out. The gold can come out of you, the gold can come out of me. And so we're going to do a little exercise to kind of help us let that come to pass. So we're actually going to start from this side of the room, and my lovely assistant Bonnie is going to help out. But so from each row, we're going to start on this side of the room, and you're just going to count off 1, 2, 1, 2, going this way. Okay? So, yeah, everybody in this row. So 1, 1. Okay. 2. He was a 2, so you're 1. You know, we're just pairing up. We're basically just pairing up. Yeah, down the row, it's just 1, 2, 1, 2. So in other words, it's 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, and then we're going to get the stragglers, okay? So, and it might just be easy. Steve, do you want to maybe pop over here? And, okay, so you two are a pair, and you two, you two, you two, and then we're going to pick you up. 2, 2, 2, 2, and we'll pick you up. And 2, 2, you see what I'm doing? Okay, so everybody stand up. Everybody stand up.
Are we a pair with the people we're sitting next to?
You're going to be a pair with the one that's next to you. If you're a 2, you're paired with the person, the one that's to your left. Okay? Now, Bonnie's here to, so if you don't, Fred, why don't you pop over here? Okay, so, and it's okay if you don't know this person. It's totally okay if you don't know this person, okay? And so if you feel like you do not have a pair, please hold your hand up. Is everybody paired up? Okay. Okay. So everybody's paired up. Okay.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Okay. Okay. So everybody's paired up, and now just with your pair, just turn and face them. And I'm just going to give you a few lines. I'm just going to say one line at a time. And you're going to seek to bless the person that you're speaking to by saying these words, okay? So it's not just a recitation, it's just you're going to bless them by saying these words to them. And then we're going to start, the ones are going to speak, the twos are going to listen, and then we're going to reverse, okay? So, please repeat after me, number one. I can see you have been wounded. I have been too. Those who hurt you were unconscious. They didn't really see you. I see you. I see your beauty and your greatness. I hope you see what I see. And just be in that for a moment. And now twos, you're going to speak, and ones you're going to receive. I can see you have been wounded. I have been too. Those who hurt you were unconscious. They didn't really see you. I see you. I see your beauty and your greatness. I hope you see what I see. And it's okay to hug. And what you just experienced is the truth of you. And you got to see some gold in each other and see it in yourself, ideally. So allow yourself to accept the words that were said to you and let out your gold. Thank you for listening. Please. Take a little bit of time in meditation. And so I invite you to just get comfortable in your chair and close your eyes, and let's all take a deep breath in and out. You are worthy. I know you forget, but this is the truth of you. You are worthy. You were made already worthy. And errors that you have made do not make you unworthy. You are worthy of every good thing that comes into your life. And allow yourself to be inspired to spread that sense of worthiness. To look into the eye of your friend and tell them all the blessed truth of themselves. As they deflect it and do their matrix dodge of the blessing, just be patient and let them have it. Just go into the silence for a few moments and let all of this truth land. It is good to be in meditation together.